I believe that one of the most serious consequences that financial abuse has over society is the vicious circle of female subjection and the constant strengthening of patriarchal systems, especially given that the majority of victims are women. The behaviors at the basis of economic abuse, namely segregation, discrimination, and isolation, generate a sense of inferiority in women who, in turn, are precluded from participating to society, to education, to training, and to employment opportunities. Essentially, they are totally excluded and alienated from all kinds of interactions.
One of the key features of economic abuse is that it causes material deprivation to the victim, which results in the inability to become financially independent and economically secure. As a result of this, the financial well-being of the victims is greatly reduced, and thus does not allow them to play an active role in economic activity. In the long run, this form of economic deprivation can have serious socioeconomic consequences on the nationwide economy and erode social security. In other words, depriving someone of their financial resources does not only harm that individual, but rather deprives society and economy of an actively contributing member of society.
There are too many individuals who want nothing more than to build a financially secure life for them and their family, but may be held back by the controlling nature of a partner. There are too many examples of the elderly doing what they can to save for retirement, but their security is jeopardized by a family member who controls their finances in a way that is not in their best interest. Economic insecurity can exist for anyone, at any age, in any life situation, and it can result in a dangerous cycle of poverty, not to mention the impacts to mental and emotional health.
Economic abuse in and of itself is a problem that is well hidden in society. Thus, identifying key signs of it occurring remains a challenge. Nonetheless, there are some cues that can show whether economic abuse may be happening, which mainly revolve around the idea of control. Now, this feature can present itself under different forms, such as economic restrictions, economic exploitation, for instance, or in forms of economic subservience and dependency. Or also, for example, when access to key financial decisions is skewed towards one of the partners.
There is no script, there is no logic. It rather consists in a set of conducts that culminates in the total control over one partner's economy and often enough entire life. I believe that the most crucial signs include the not sharing financial decisions, indebting one partners without their knowledge, demanding informations or statements of accounts and the expenses incurred, and also prohibiting employment opportunities. These are only some of the behaviors that, combined with psychological violence, culminate in precarious situations and possibly in physical violence too. Essentially, economic violence consists in a domino effect, where the tiles grow in severity, rendering the situations almost irreversible unless seized immediately.
Even with all the progress that society has made, there are far too many ingrained social norms that are destructive to healthy and empowering financial habits. In too many relationships, it's assumed the man should have the final say in money or budget decisions. There's often little done to check if a family member who is controlling the finances of an elderly relative is doing so with their best interest at heart. Economic abuse, by the very nature of emotional and psychological manipulation that drives it, is often a hidden problem.
Well, the impact of economic abuse goes beyond the material deprivation of key financial resources, and can indeed have serious impacts on the psychological well-being of the victims. Recently, studies have shown that economic abuse is linked to depression, anxiety, which greatly reduces the quality of life of the victims. This further highlights the complex and multifaceted nature of economic abuse and the urgency of tackling this matter. Psychological distress can eventually deteriorate and have a long-lasting consequence on the victim's ability to conduct a healthy and productive life as an active member of our society.
I think that the psychological aspect is a pivotal one in the sense that it is almost impossible to detach economic violence from mental violence. I think that there must be a radical increase of consciousness of the fact. People must realize that money and financial matters aren't taboo topics, and that therefore all issues surrounding it, including economic abuse, may be discussed of more openly. If we start talking about it, it will become a more known issue, and therefore more noticeable, more apparent, and more preventable, especially if combined with efforts to increase the levels of financial literacy.
Far too many men still feel they should be the primary income earners in a household, and can become angry or subversive when that's not the case. Too many people are manipulated to feel that they do not have a final say over their financial goals and future. The mental and emotional toll of economic abuse is real, not to mention the very real pain that financial insecurity can cause to families. The danger of not having enough to pay for rent or for the next meal for your family is extremely damaging. That kind of insecurity can build on itself, creating cycles of debt that can sustain long into a person's life.
Well, I will make sure that to get in touch with my friends and family, as I believe that the best way to fight economic abuse is to make this issue known as something that can happen to anyone.
I will tell my peers as to increase the outreach, raise awareness, and share the message.
Colleagues of mine who work with women's shelters, where this will be an incredibly valuable tool.
When knowledge about financial decisions is not distributed equally among both partners, for instance, or also when there is a high level of financial dependency from one partner to the other. For instance, when there is one that is employed and the other one isn't.
The preconception that women shouldn't work and should rather stay at home and take care of the household.
We don't know how many people may need a credit card or bank account and don't have one due to control of their partner. Those are the hidden stories we need to uplift.
The idea that economic abuse occurs also outside of gender.
That even if you try to explain what economic violence is, people don't recognize it as a proper form of abuse and often enough do not consider it to be a pressing issue.
What hits home to me is how many people have lost their jobs due to intimate partner violence. Some research indicates this may be the case for over 50% of victims.
Well, make sure that economic abuse is understood as an issue that has serious statewide socioeconomic consequences rather than an isolated issue.
Make sure that policy measures in terms of legislations are implemented so that we can protect victims without having to recur to domestic legal acts.
I want to make this issue far more prominent, doing what we can to help victims identify what is going on and ensure they have access to the resources to improve their situation.
We're currently working on the development of a framework which will aim at examining the relationship between economic abuse and financial wellness in the United States.
Personally, I'm extremely about the DVL method, which is the digital and visual learning method, as school-based projects where we use comics and art to try to explain difficult concepts such as economic violence and female emancipation.
I'm excited about our work on financial education and empowerment for Generation Z. The world of money and investing is changing, and it's exciting to be able to give young people the tools to thrive in new ways.
I would say fair, prosperous, and united.
Gender equal, emancipated, and economically independent.
Equal, just, prosperous.